The heart of drama in any movie is a reversal, basically. You think somebody's gone one way and suddenly everything changes. A plot twist is just something in a movie that is a big hinge moment that you don't see coming. And I think it's not effective when it feels like it comes out of nowhere and is disconnected from what came before it. Whereas if it feels like the culmination of something, or if it's a surprise, but it's a surprise and it connects up with things from earlier in the movie, then it feels satisfying to an audience. When you're plotting something out, the worst way you can possibly approach it is to think what would be the craziest twist to throw at the audience. I don't think you should think in terms of plot twists. I think you should think in terms of the logic of the story and think about kind of the overall arc and think about kind of the spine underneath it and what dramatically makes sense. Once you start thinking of that in terms of the perspective of your main character and putting yourself, seeing it through their eyes, it's going to lead you to opportunities.
I suspect foul play.
In Looper, we start out with the character of older Joe, Bruce Willis's character, and he's had the woman he loves kind of violently taken away from him by this evil character, the Rainmaker, and we experience that with him, and so we're on the side of, yes, find this evil person and kill him. And then at some point in the movie, we reveal what that actually means, finding the person and killing them. And it's kind of an emotional pivot point where suddenly your emotional perspective on both the character of older Joe and his quest changes.
So why don't you do what old men do? And died.
The 1970s version of the film Sleuth with Michael Caine and Laurence Olivier. The setup is very simple. It's a country estate in the middle of England. It's a rich, wealthy mystery writer. He invites a young hairdresser to come out for the afternoon. He fixes him a drink and they start small talk, and then basically he says, "So I understand you're in love with my wife." And that begins a game of cat and mouse between them.
Well, is it true?
With your permission, of course.
I like the relationship between telling a story on the screen and a card trick. I'm always really interested by that analogy because there are a lot of similar elements that are at play, and one of the big ones is misdirection. The notion of like, look over here while you're actually, slipping a card in their pocket or setting something else up here. The way that usually works the best is when it's emotional misdirection. Basically when you're guiding the audience emotionally to feel a certain way, and that's going to bias them to looking at things from a certain angle, while the thing that you're actually setting up is in the other direction. That's always, I think, the most effective thing. Inglourious Basterds, you don't think of really as a plot twist movie, but maybe the number one example of a thing that happened at the end of a movie that I didn't expect, where I felt as if I was floating off of my seat in the theater with the realization of, oh my God, this is what this movie is doing. The fact that we know it's here's a gang that's going to try and kill Hitler movie. And so from the very start, all of our expectations, emotional and otherwise, are tuned towards tragedy because no one's going to kill Hitler. We know they're not. And so these guys are going to fail. Because of that, that's the ultimate misdirection. So at the end of it, when you're waiting for it all to go wrong, and it does all start going wrong, it happens. And they win. And I remember when I realized I was watching a fantasy, I remember that having the emotional effect on me that I think is the ultimate thing that any plot twist could ever aim for, which is a feeling of revelation. You feel like the floodgates have opened in your heart and like, oh my God, this is what this is actually doing. And that for me exemplifies the emotional reaction that the best plot twist can give you. You know that you've pulled off a great plot twist when it feels satisfying beyond just, oh, that reaction. When you actually feel like people are happy that it has happened. After it's done, it feels like it was inevitable, even though they didn't see it coming.
That's some heavy-duty conjecture.
Plot twists in my movies, again, I try and make it so that they're never really the point. Like with Knives Out, for example, it has a revelation at the end in terms of a whodunit style revelation. For me, it's much more about the relationship that has to the character of Marta's arc throughout the story and how you're going to react to the very last shot of the movie, basically. To me, that's kind of the actual twist that I'm doing with the audience, is where she ends up at the end of the film in relation to the family. Yeah, and similar with Brick, like I mentioned, there's the plot twist of, oh, it was actually the femme fatale the whole time, but the real plot twist for me is what she tells him at the very end that completely shifts your emotional perspective. The stuff I'm always going for and trying to give people an experience of is kind of an emotional revelation as opposed to, a true plot twist.